So, you're ready?
Ready when you are.
We are ready when you're. Okay, super. Okay, so welcome to the Glengarry Bench. This is, once again, at the Glengarry Bench, this is a segment where Glengarrians get a front row seat to what's happening on Parliament Hill. This is hosted by us, Glengarry TV. And this series follows MP Eric Duncan as he shares his updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes perspectives on the issues shaping our country and our county as well. So good afternoon, Eric.
Good to be with you.
And thanks for welcome to the segment. So I'm just a couple of things. I'm just to start talking just community-wise. I guess Parliament's on break till the fall, right?
We've got a recess now until middle of September we go back. So
Okay.
It's a good chance to get out and about in SD&G. I always say I get my meals and miles in at different community events, and it's just a great chance to hear feedback from people about the issues that are important to them.
Yeah.
Cost of living, gas prices, housing continues to be a big issue locally.
Yeah.
And so just getting the chance to talk to people and also doing a lot of casework in our office as well. We help a lot of people with federal issues too.
So I have to say I'm amazed at how present you are at so many community events. And really, I seriously don't remember an MP sort of showing up to so many Glengarry events. Kudos, like it, and from what I remember, it's like this is sort of a wow moment for me as well, because I thought wow, this is, you don't always have to do it, but you do it, and I'm sure that folks really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that that it gets noticed or recognized. Like I said, it's a good chance for the feedback to get to connect with people, where they get to see me and give me their 2 cents, the good, bad, and the indifferent.
Yeah.
People are very good in sharing that. But the second thing as well, a lot of the events that I go to and that are put on in the community are done by volunteers. So I know it means a lot to them. I've had a lot of positive feedback when we're able to go and attend and support the event, and just thank the volunteers that are out doing great things. They think of all the different events and festivals that go on. There's a lot of people donating their time, so for us just to come out and say thank you, it helps build our quality of life here in SD&G, and particularly in Glengarry County. And so any chance I can go and give a thank you or kudos to that and buy a ticket, support a cause is something I enjoy doing.
Cool. Well, kudos to you as well. So I have a few little things to talk about. I'm sure that you'll be able to give your 2 cents on them. So let's talk about the Alto rail project. So the federal government has announced plans for the Alto high-speed rail project, in the Quebec City, Montreal, Ottawa corridor. So many see it as a sort of a major investment in transportation and economic growth. Some people do. Rural communities often wonder how these projects themselves and the scale will benefit regions like Glengarry that are sort of outside the proposed the actual proposed route. So some Glengarrys do support the investments in transportation, but they want to know how projects like Alto will be beneficial to communities, and what are you hearing from Glengarry residents on this issue, whether this is a good fit or not for our region? So
I hear a lot about Alto, and it's mostly people very frustrated at the proposal of what's being proposed, how it's being proposed, and the overall cost of it. It's, to me, a $90 billion boondoggle, and I shouldn't even say $90 billion because that's, to me, a low-cost estimate of what it's expected to be. There is just, I think, a lot of concern right now in North Glengarry, where the path is going through. They're looking at doing a huge swath of area that they're studying to have the rail line go through, and it's going to be very disruptive to farm families, for private crossings, for roadways, emergency services. There's a lot of concern on the physical aspect of what high speed is going to mean, and it's not stopping in our community. Alexandria has a Via Rail stop, but this is not going to be servicing our community. It's going to be servicing Montreal and Ottawa, and not everyone's going to be able to go or make it economical or make it efficient to go to Ottawa and so forth to catch the train to Toronto and so forth that way. So there's the physical aspect of the project there's been a lot of concern about, but the one I hear a lot about is it's at least 90 billion. There's studies that are showing it could be 150, 160 billion because you got to build underpasses and overpasses, you got to close roads, you got to fence the entire thing, especially if it's in a new area. The granular that's required for the base of all this is very expensive, and people are just worried about the cost. And the frank reality with this project is we're, as a country, $60 billion a year in debt as a deficit on our annual budget. Not a penny of this is paid for by tax dollars. It's paid for by more debt. And so people are looking to say right now, with everything we've got going on in our country, the challenges that we have, we should be looking, in my opinion, looking at making better investments in our existing via infrastructure. That supports the Alexandria station, that supports the Cornwall station on the 401 corridor, where the majority of population and traffic is. And VIA only owns about 3% of the track between, I think it's Montreal and Toronto, that corridor specifically. So they're held up for private freight that goes through. And there's some things we can do about adding third lines in, where we're talking maybe millions of dollars of investment as opposed to billions and billions and billions. So I am hearing a lot from Glengarry residents about that, both on the physical concerns about what would happen if it went through the North Glengarry area and the impact on the land, but also just more than anything else, the cost of this at a time when our finances are stretched.
Yeah, and like you said, it is about transportation, and if we actually lose our via rail service here, then there's what's the point? It's sort of, we're taking steps back, in my opinion.
I agree. We have two stations in our riding, Cornwall and Alexandria, and I have serious concerns about what the future would be if the Alto proposal goes through as is, particularly Alexandria. And it's a service that people appreciate, and we should be, in today's day and age, expanding on, or at least maintaining the service levels, not jeopardizing it in any way.
Okay, so let's talk about cost of living. So it seems that, despite some easing inflation a little bit, let's say easing a tiny bit, many families still continue to struggle with the rising cost of groceries, insurance, utilities, everyday essentials, and rural residents, face additional transportation, heating costs that urban Canadians don't necessarily have. So as these costs of living seem to be sort of one of the biggest concerns, even in Canada and throughout the world, especially in North America. What do you believe the federal government most effective tools to help families? What should it be to help these families who feel squeezed every month, and what specific measures should be introduced over the next year, you think?
Sure. So cost of living is a huge concern. I continue to hear that, and we continue to see it in actual tangible numbers. We look at food bank use. So we look in Cornwall at the Agape Center, down in Mountain at the House of Lazarus, St. Vincent de Paul in Cornwall, and St. Vincent de Paul up here in Alexandria. We continue to see community food shares, another food bank that we have down in Dundas and in North Stormont. And all of those organizations have seen their food bank use double in the last 5 years. And they're often struggling to keep their shelves full as new people are coming in. And the concerning part is it's not just those that are perhaps seniors on a disability or on a fixed income aspect. That way, it's working families that are coming in that are maybe making minimum wage or a little bit more, or they maybe some families that consider themselves kind of a medium income household, but with their mortgage payments going up, gas prices going up, food inflation going up, they're struggling to make ends meet. So we can tell by the tangible data at our food banks that there's a real struggle and a continued struggle that goes on with the cost of living. Inflation continues to be stubbornly high. It's gone back, gas prices being the leading component of this. The Bank of Canada has a target rate for inflation between 1% and 3%. It's back over 3%, just over 3%, but still just outside that target range right now. And so we have, and the stats show through Stats Canada, that we have the second highest, or the highest food inflation, I should say, in the G7 of all the countries. Canada sadly leads the way in cost of food going up. Tomatoes, I saw a number, I think tomatoes are up 45%. There's some external factors that happen there. I get frustrated that we don't have enough greenhouse capacity or potential, using all of our potential here in Canada for greenhouses that could address that. But again, we're seeing numbers go in the wrong direction outside that target more and more.
So what do you feel that the government could be doing?
100%. So I think the solution that we propose as Conservatives, and we've been advocating this for several months, is going further than what I call the half measure the Liberals did to provide gas tax relief. So the Liberals made an announcement about probably 3 months ago now that they are going to take the federal excise tax off the price of gas, which is about 10 cents a litre. but there are more federal taxes on the price of gas. There is a fuel standard tax that they've introduced in the last couple of years. That's 7 cents a liter in the price of gas. In the coming years, that's going to be going to 17 cents a liter. And there's no rebates for that, like the carbon tax. It is just a flat out amount that people pay now. Then, of course, there's the GST, HST portion on the price of gas, which amounts to about, give or take, about 8 or 9 cents a liter. So in reality, there's not just the 10 cents that the Liberals have taken off. There's about 25 cents a liter there that the federal government does charge in taxes. We're saying take all the tax off for all of the year. The Liberals are only going to Labor Day with their 10 cents. We're saying that people need more relief and they need it for longer. How does that help? It keeps more money in people's pockets. We can't control the global factors of gas prices and oil prices on the market. Those are often external factors to beyond Canada's and the government of Canada's control. What we can control is the taxes that are charged, and we can give some relief, like they said, that 25 cents a liter. And I look at people with gas prices right now, I filled up at about $1.50. We could take another 15 cents a liter off. And for rural families in Glengarry that don't have the luxury of hopping on a bus or taking public transportation, driving around in gas is essential. So we can take the 15 cents more a liter off, and we can do all of that for the remainder of the year to provide that. The other thing I always say, it doesn't just help on gas prices. The same thing goes for diesel. We provide that same relief for diesel prices as well. My family was in the trucking business for years, and this is a real tangible way we can lower transportation and shipping costs for food and other goods that are trucked around this country. Is where in our family business, and the way that it's usually charged in the trucking business, you charge a flat rate plus a fuel surcharge based on the price of fuel in diesel. If the price is down, you charge less of a surcharge, then it costs less to ship that load around wherever it's going to the country or down to the US. So that's a tangible way. If we want to lower inflation, lower food costs, lower the cost of transport food, our gas tax, gas and diesel tax relief plan is a real tangible way I think we can move the needle and provide people more. It's not going to solve the issue entirely, but it's going to make I think a more significant dent in the strains people have with their family budget,
especially in rural Ontario.
100%.
Because for us, it's not a luxury; it's a necessity.
Exactly.
And especially people, if we do go, whether it's come into town or whatnot, it's not like we do have access to public transit. We don't have that. It's not going to happen. And then this is something that we have to face all the time. So wouldn't maybe there should be this is sort of far-fetched, but maybe there should be some policies that recognize some rural recognize that rural transportation is somewhat different than somebody living in a city.
The amount of kilometers that people put on their car in a rural area on average is much higher. It's the same thing in Eastern Ontario. I look at Northern Ontario as well. They have a huge strain that way. If you have to go, between Timmins and Sudbury, we talk about a big trip between Cornwall, Alexandria, or into Ottawa and back. That's enough for price of gas. But if you're up in Northern Ontario, drive between Timmins and Sudbury down for a medical appointment or for education, healthcare, all these things, that's a significant 3.5 hour drive. So it's even more impactful in some of the remote and rural communities. It's a huge thing. But I'll just give you another example of, and again, I say the car is king in rural areas. That's the option that people have to get around. It's the backbone to their quality of life. If people can't afford a vehicle, they have a really hard time with employment, getting groceries, and having just being involved in their community and in public in public activities, all this stuff, if you don't have a vehicle. One of the other things which we've been talking about again is going back to the taxes that are charged by the federal government. We're talking about used cars and taking the sales tax off of the purchase of used cars, and we're having a case now. Whenever I'll give you an example, I drive a Chrysler 300. If I bought it new, which I didn't, but if I bought it new, person pays the HST on the vehicle, and then when it gets sold and it's a used car, I have to pay HST again. That if I were to sell it to somebody, they'd have to pay HST on it. You could be paying HST on that vehicle 3, 4, 5 times, depending on the number of times it's cycled through. That is double, triple, quadruple taxation in my mind. So what we should be doing is only charging them on new vehicles, and on used cars, we should be taking the federal sales tax off at least, and that could be saving families thousands of dollars on the purchase of a vehicle. It's already expensive to maintain a vehicle, but when it comes to purchasing it, we don't need to charge the tax. Again, we'll make it clear, the tax is charged the first time the vehicle's there, but every subsequent time, that's just repetitious taxation that makes life more affordable and used cars more affordable. So again, we talk about how can we make life more affordable? How can we get more people to yes in purchasing a vehicle? That's a new private members bill that we're going to be debating in Parliament this fall that we're hoping the government will support us on.
The removal of tax on
used cars.
vehicles. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so housing programs. So affordability for housing is a growing concern across Canada, and even in smaller communities like Glengarry's. Home prices have risen. You know, there's rental vacancies. They remain really low, and young families are really find it very difficult to enter the housing market. It's next to impossible. So you can't blame it on the boomers, but it's just something that makes it quite complex because of you know the economics around that. So how do you, what federal programs do you believe would make a real difference for rural communities like Glengarry, and where do you think improvements are needed?
So our major issue right now isn't specifically boomers or an age demographic group or on home builders. It is centered around a lack of supply right now. So we are not building enough houses in this country to keep up with the demand of our population growth and the number of people coming into home ownership and wanting or even looking to rent or looking to buy. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the federal government's housing agency, says we need to build about 500,000 new homes per year just to meet demand and to not make houses any more expensive than they already are.
Can we make that happen?
We're only building half of that right now.
Oh, really?
So the Liberals have pledged to double it. We haven't seen the plans. Everything they've tabled is nowhere near doubling home building in this country. We've actually seen housing starts go down in some cases in different jurisdictions month over month. We're actually seeing a decline in housing starts, not an acceleration or not a doubling of what we need. So one of the issues that we have is when we have that supply and we're getting more homes built, it's not the same 7 people looking to buy and bid on a house, and we're getting into these bidding wars again. There's more out in the market that people could still make a living of building and buying homes, and people can still afford to purchase one. So supply is a huge issue. What can we do and what have we proposed? The Liberals have done it in Ontario in partnership with the Ontario government. They took our idea. We always like when they copy our ideas, and they did to a certain extent, is in Ontario, they're taking the HST off of new home builds. So people can save 13% on the cost of a new home. You buy a home for $750,000, there's tens of thousands of dollars in savings in that purchase price. And it's also tens of thousands of dollars that you save that you don't have to mortgage and lowers your mortgage payment. So we've been advocating for this. The Liberals did take our idea on that. They only did it with Ontario. I think they should do it with more provinces across the country. And they're doing it in a limited window of a couple of years. But that can spur more people to get to yes on purchasing and buying a new home and getting more shovels in the ground. And I've been talking to builders in our community, and there's definitely been some more interest on it, but it's still nowhere near enough of what we need. We need more tools and more stimulus to get more shovels in the ground and homes built. We need more apprentices and we need more laborers and tradespeople. Is very clear that way, and we need to be doing more. I know the provincial government, which is more on the education post-secondary side of things, they're putting a bigger emphasis on getting young people to go into trades, both men and women going into trades, which I think is good. And the Ontario Conservative government has been leading on that for the last couple of years of encouraging that. The last point that I'll make that I think that we can do too is we have to get away from the amount of taxes that are charged on new home builds. Development charges, like I said, the HST that's charged. What the number one expense when it comes to building a new home in this country is not the labor, it's not the materials, It's the taxes and fees and regulation that is charged, that is costing that. We need to lower that. So we said, what can the government do? The federal government can actually get out of the way, stop charging so many taxes in disincentivizing or making it more expensive to build them. If we actually lower them, we're getting more people to yes, we're getting more people that could afford a mortgage, could afford that down payment and do all that. That's what we need to be doing that way. So that's been a key thing that we've been advocating for. The Liberals have taken some of our ideas, but nowhere near their promise to double home building to 500,000 homes a year. We're still far away from that according to their own data.
Yeah, but there will be another session in the fall, and perhaps that can be put forth.
Absolutely.
We have some appointment news. We have something to share. So, as per your press release, MP Eric Duncan has been appointed as the Conservative Party Canada's Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. So, this is leading the opposition's effort to hold the government accountable on international affairs while advancing principled foreign policy that puts Canada's interests first. So there's a whole press release on this, but since we have you here, can you tell us about the position and what you intend or how you intend to look into certain things?
Yeah, it was an interesting call that I got from Pierre, and a new challenge and opportunity for me to serve as a Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. It's a very big portfolio and an important one on our front bench. That is exactly what you said, is holding the Liberals to account. And we live in a very complex world these days. I don't need to say that would be an understatement or a very obvious statement. But when you think of Canada-US relations, Canada-China relations, the situation in Iran and the Middle East, we think about what's going on in Venezuela, the tension going on in Cuba. There are so many hot spots around the world that Canada needs to be playing a leading role in either advocating our interests there, more importantly, advocating our economic interests that are there. A Canada First approach, where we need to go and start putting some better economic deals, I think, at the table, more free trade agreements around the world. And I think bolstering our national defense, working with democratic allies and partnering with them around the world, pushing back against authoritarian regimes that are getting more aggressive in different parts of the world, and upending stability and in safety, in many cases, of people in those countries and Canadians who are in the region or in those countries as well. It's a huge portfolio. It's a big responsibility, but I think there's a huge amount of potential there as well. Canada does well when we can export ourselves around the world. We have a ton of potential, and I go back at the end of the day with the Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberals. They talk a big game. They give big speeches and they have big pronouncements, and the Prime Minister travels around the world and signs MOUs and has these photo ops. But it's going to be our job as the opposition to hold them to account about actually following through and seeing results. A speech is one thing, an intention is another, an MOU with aspirational plans is one thing. We're going to be holding them to account to say, look, you've promised to put Canada on the world stage more and more, and we don't need these kind of fake agreements or these platitude things. We need real, concrete economic development plans. We need free trade agreements, and that's going to be one of my roles as the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs, is undertaking that big responsibility. So it's a big challenge, but one I'm looking forward to.
Very cool, very nice. So we look forward to seeing you in your new role as its critic to actually see how we can keep the government accountable to its MOUs and sort of transform that into more concrete actions.
You bet.
So, a final word. First of all, thanks again for coming in.
Lovely.
Always a pleasure having you. Always a pleasure seeing you at these events,
Lovely.
shaking your hands and seeing you there. I hope we can continue to have this parliamentary, sort of conversation, even though you are sort of getting higher into these ranks, and you will
all remember,
politics
is still local.
You will remember us, the little people. It is after all the House of Common,
the commoners.
Exactly. So, is there anything else you'd like to touch on? I know you're probably gonna have a busy summer, sort of hopping here and there, but you probably have your eye on what's going to be going on in the fall and
getting ready. I'm gonna have a lot of chance to brief up on the new file and start to learn about and get caught up on a lot of the different situations, like I mentioned, around the world and the hotspots around the world. key trade opportunities that we have. So my parliamentary file is going to be important, but like I say, all politics is local at the end of the day. The people of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry come first. And I'll give kudos to you guys. Glengarry TV, we had, as an example of doing outreach and connecting with seniors, we had the Seniors Expo here in Alexandria just a week or two ago, and it was an immense success. We had nearly 300 people, I think we counted at the end of the day. But you guys were there with a booth, getting your name out there about the opportunities, and we had a lot of positive feedback. So as much as I get out in the community, I see you guys out a lot too, getting your name out and getting word about what's happening with the public and getting the mayors on the program. Yeah. I think it's great, and I appreciate the chance to be in studio with you to give you a bit of an update on the work that I've been doing and trying to do in our community's behalf.
Yeah, well, we're more and more as time goes by, we'll try to be as ever present, you know, and then hopefully awesome. People will also remember us that we're there. Well, again, Eric, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck in your new role.
Thank you.
And hopefully we will see you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you around the summer. You bet.
Thank you. Cheers.